What up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Nerd Report. I'm your host, Pablo, and joining me, as always, is Mr. Brian Schultz. And welcome to our special show that we call The Void, where, we talk about those things that sort of slip under the radar, but are significant to the genre and tell a tale. So, we'll talk about Grillo on DC versus Marvel. That one's a funny one.
Mm-hmm.
Andor ratings. Huge.
Yeah,
Brian.
they did it. They did it. Yeah.
Spaceballs 2, which is interesting. I would like to see this because they have a lot to play with.
Oh, they do.
And Jurassic box office.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So Grillo on DC versus Marvel, what happened there? What did he say?
So, okay, as most folks probably know, Frank Grillo was Brock Rumlow, Crossbones in the MCU, then switched over to be Rick Flag, both in the animated form of Creature Commandos and in the live action form in Superman and Peacemaker season 2. He is very clearly a DC guy now, a James Gunn guy. I think if you go back, there were rumblings that he was pretty upset with how Crossbones was handled or kind of underdeveloped based upon what he signed to do. And so he goes into detail about the contrast of being involved in the Marvel projects versus involved in the DC projects. And there's no question where his loyalty lies. So, quote, this is a long quote, but it's kind of interesting. Quote, when he, meaning James Gunn, asked me to do the role in Creature Commandos, he sent me every script and not a word was changed. And then when he asked me to do Peacemaker, he sent me every script and not a word was changed. My role in Superman has a lot to do with Peacemaker, so connective tissue. And of course, not a word has changed. That's notable, right? Because we've heard stories about like Superman, how much it was edited or like studio got involved. Back to Grillo. But because the arc is constantly evolving, you need to be involved in how the characters change a lot more. Gunn is all about script, 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 script. Whereas Marvel, they'll start a movie, well, part of it. And they have a script, but not really a script. You start in, and then halfway through, you're like, uh-oh. I personally prefer scripts to be fleshed out. The way James Gunn is running DC is the antithesis to how Kevin Feige has been running Marvel. And to me, it is a better fit. End quote. Shots fired.
He's saying what has been said, but in a more, direct way. So it's nothing new in that regard. He's just reminding you of the process that they had. Just read the book, guys.
Yeah, Rise
read
of the MCU.
Book.
Yeah,
yes.
They don't shy away from the fact that what Grillo's saying is part of the process. There is a lot of on-the-fly stuff that they've always relied on in Marvel.
This highlight will be a talking point if Kevin Feige cannot turn the ship around. It will be one of the reasons used.
That's the thing. On paper, what Grillo's describing, you would say, well, clearly that what he's talking about with the Gunn approach is the way to go, right? But that's not necessarily true, especially not when Marvel can point to its success, like its historical success, and say, how can you criticize when we got the results that we did, doing it the way we did it? Yeah. And the reality is, if we get Superman in July and it's just meh, you can talk about script all you want. If you don't have the right taste in script, I don't care how finished it is, it's not gonna land, right? So it's not as clear cut as he makes it out to be. I think what he's giving you, though, is the actor's perspective and saying, yes, I imagine that as an actor, you would always prefer to have scripts, guardrails, things that you can use as a basis for your performance, as opposed to being handed a new note that says, no, go this direction to that, no, go that direction tomorrow. Like, I get that.
Yeah.
But you were right. If Superman is great, and the Fantastic Four test screening, it's mid, turns out to be true. And then we head toward Doomsday, and that turns out to be kind of a post Endgame Russo style mess, like with Gray Man and stuff like that. Yeah, you better believe this conversation is going to start coming up a lot more.
Yeah. Andor ratings. They did it, Brian. And people took note this time around.
Yep.
What's happening with that?
So the second season, massive momentum. I mean, and big increase in viewership from season one. So the release date strategy, remember that when we had that initial conversation? And I don't think the guy whoever it was didn't totally understand. Where they were kind of saying Disney was dumping this and not supporting it.
Yeah, it was new rock stars.
I think they've been validated that, and Tony Gilroy has been validated that doing it this way generated a lot of buzz in a short span of time. So this show, when the first batch of episodes 1 through 3 were available, it cracked the top 10 in the Nielsen ratings. For the next batch, it went to number 6. For the third batch, it went to number 5, and for the finale, it went out at number 1.
Number 1.
So they got this thing to the most watched show on the way out. And you know there's going to be repeat viewing. You know there's going to be people discovering this, especially you get around the Emmy season. Remember, after the first season, the biggest complaint was this show is amazing, but the eyes on it. We didn't get as many eyes on it as they hoped. This time around, they got it. Like, they got the audience. And so I think, it's just nice to see. Like, this is a story that has a happy ending, right? Like, they spent the money. They delivered the product. It will stand the test of time as one of the great shows that we've had, and people showed up to watch. That's awesome to see. So,
do you believe? Reminded me. Do you believe now, Trinity?
Paul, I love it.
Do you believe that the eyes that are looking at Star Wars, the audience, people haven't seen this Star Wars, does it not say possibly to them that this is the sort of direction that they need to move forward in the future? Not necessarily continue to tell this story, right? But the tone and the visuals. Brian, I can't get that joint out of my head, yo. When that starfighter does that detour goes down. Imagine in the theater seeing something like that.
Oh, I'm with you. That's my lingering request, is that they put this. They do that. They do next May 4th. They do some kind of watch party celebration at select theaters for season 2. They do one each week or one every other week, and just give us a chance to see some of these scenes formatted for big screen. It's the opposite of the Thunderbolts question, right? Thunderbolts question, we're asking, is it pushing Disney to retreat into what they know, safer territory?
Yeah.
I think Andor proves now, more so than with season 1, because the audience proves there's an accessibility factor to Star Wars that does matter. Like, I do think, like, the Filoni of it all, one of the risks is that he's so deep into the canon that sometimes you're creating stuff where it's like, wait, I got to do how much homework to even understand what this is or what's going on or where I am in the timeline. Whereas Andor basically was like, if you happen to know everything that comes after this, great, good for you. You don't need it to enjoy this show on its own merit. Which, if you think about it, when George Lucas first put out the original Star Wars, A New Hope, that's what Star Wars was. Star Wars was accessible to everybody. It's only through the years that the IP became more discriminating, quite honestly.
Yeah.
And this show kind of brought back that idea of like, yeah, it's Star Wars, but it's also all sorts of other genres you're familiar with, and you don't need a lot of background in the Force or in the Empire or in Darth Vader. You don't need any of it. Like, if you know it, that's great, but you don't need it to enjoy this show. And so I continue to think that, so this mattered. I continue to think Dawn of the Jedi is critical to expanding the horizons of what is possible in the universe. And yes, like, I don't want to forget about the kids. Like, this one is not for the kids, and the kids do need a place because that's what George always intended. But I think you can have both. And I think to not look at this as revealing the potential of the IP is silly.
Yeah. Spaceballs 2.
Speaking of Star Wars and the broader Star Wars universe.
Listen, I'm wondering how long they've been thinking about this. Do you know?
I don't, but like, the first thing that caught my eye was that it was Amazon MGM who was doing it. And I was like, I sent you, I said, "Is Amazon doing Amazon things?" I was like, they're looking at what they've got in the library that they can leverage.
And somebody said, yo, we got enough to do Star Wars, Spaceballs. And look at, you have the Naked Gun making the whispers of how good this could be. And so if that is a success, Spaceballs can be massive. And then hopefully we get Space Ghost after that.
I think I actually weirdly think that the trials and tribulations of Star Wars as an IP right now is tailor-made for this as a satirical view of what's happening. In a weird way, I feel like when, if they attempted this at Force Awakens, or like when Star Wars was humming, I actually don't know that the appeal is as great. I think it's better what Star Wars now is struggling, that they bring this.
They can take the Ryan Reynolds approach in terms of doing those 100%. References.
100%.
Yeah.
Although I gotta say, you want parallels? So first off, the teaser shows no footage. It's just an announcement. It's a hilarious scroll. But I got to the other question I had that was lingering as this was going on was like, is he alive? And then at the end, they show Mel Brooks. And I'm like, it's like in the Rise of Skywalker, the dead speak. It's Palpatine. He's still alive. I'm like, he's 98. He's 98. And he's still with it. And he's sitting there being like, the Schwartz is coming in 2027. And I'm like, this literally is Rise of Sky. Like, where's the thing holding him up and like suspending him in the air? Like, this is the same thing. So this movie will come out. He's going to be 100.
If God willing, he can make it there. Yeah.
He seems perfectly with it in the little bit that he talks in the teaser. He seems razor sharp. I'm like, that's
dope.
It's unbelievable. Like, Blazing Saddles was 51 years ago. Jesus. Like,
wow. I mean, yeah, man. Spaceballs 2, they have enough material to make a good impact if they do, when they do that one.
The sign off to it was it's a theatrical release. So Amazon sees this as a theater worthy production.
Amazon's going to do their own theaters, man.
I agree with you. I think it's coming.
They're really pushing themselves into the fold, into that world. I just don't see any other way. Give us a call. We'll definitely consult with you guys because we've been talking about this for how long now? But anyway,
I know.
Brian, you had Jurassic box office here on the list. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, let's just close out with a little box office. Oh, I have one other note, which I've not told. I texted Pablo the story, but I've not told him I want to put it on the void, so I'll put it at the very end.
Okay.
Box office stuff, though. This is what we're talking about for competition. So we got tracking. Remember, we got tracking. Fantastic Four was 125 to 136 US. We got tracking for Superman, 140 to 185. Jurassic, they're saying tracking is 115 to 135. So think about that. In 4 weeks, you're going to have 3 movies that are projected to make at least $115 million US in their opening weekend. I have a tough time believing all 3 of them will get to their number. That's like a lot of box. That's a lot of trips to the movies. That's a lot of popularity in a very. It's very rare to see. Now, people will point to like Barbenheimer and stuff like that, but hang on a minute. Barbie had a massive open. Oppenheimer's open was very solid, but that was definitely like a compounding to get to its $1 billion. It is not typical that you just rip 150, 150, 150 week after week after week for new opens. And that's basically what, and this is coming after Lilo and Stitch threw down like a record setting Memorial Day. And obviously, like I think How to Train Your Dragon is tracking to like 75 to 80 opening weekend. And like who knows what F1's going to do. Like there's going to be some big numbers on the board before you even get to these. So I'm just pointing out to people, this is the biggest hurdle to these movies getting to $1 billion is each other. Yeah. Like these are big numbers. It's great that it's happening, but these are big numbers.
There are a lot of movies to go see. And people are going to have options. People are going to have options, and there's a lot of good stuff to see. Jurassic Park looks interesting, Brian. I'm not going to take my youngest, even though when he sees it, he's like, he want to see. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to take you to go see. Not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
But that was The Void. Is anything else, Brian?
Yeah, I had one last note.
Oh, that's right.
And I don't want to make light of it. So I'm going to be very clear for everyone who saw the Air India tragedy this week with their flight. Condolences to everyone who was lost in the crash. But connecting it to our genre, something happened in that event.
Oh, snap! Yeah,
I could not get out of my head, and I have to admit I am obsessed. So there were 240 some odd passengers on the plane. The plane takes off from India, headed for England. It basically explodes. It catches fire and explodes in air, and then crashes to the earth.
You seen the footage?
Yeah. So it's incinerate. It's like a fireball before it hits the ground, and then it hits the ground. Like it's from the air. It's a crash from the air. One survivor. One guy. And the details are just sort of eerie. So he had a window seat, which should have been like a highest risk seat. There's a shot of him in the hospital. And like, I don't know if it's just the camera work, but it basically looks like he has a flesh wound on his head and he's otherwise fine. And all I could think about was Unbreakable. It's all I could think about was the M. Night Shyamalan movie and the revelation of Mr. Glass, where he causes all of these disasters through the years around the world. And he looks at David Dunn and he's like, I waited for this one headline where he was like, all people killed, one survivor. Yeah. I looked at that. I was like, is it possible this guy's a superhero? Like literally, is it possible this guy is an Ubermensch, a mutant? Like how? The plane blew up in air. How did he walk away with like no burns and minimal wounds?
Has he given any details of what he saw?
No, I mean, he's still like, I think he's technically still in the hospital for like observation. Yeah. But I'm just saying there's a shot of him in the bed and he's not
I saw
burned.
That shot.
There's a cut like on his head and you're like, the plane was incinerated. Like how? I'm just, again, I don't mean to make light of the tragedy at all, but I just, with all the stuff we cover in this genre, I just was like, it literally was from that movie. Like if you see it, go back and watch the scene where it shows and his monologue about it. It's literally that scene. And you're like, this is the moment.
It's going to be interesting to hear what he has to say.
I'm obsessed with the story. I Google for like little updates. I'm like, I need to know how this happened because I can't think of any other example of this.
Yeah.
Like this is not, we've seen like, the Sully style where the plane, they guide the plane in, it crashes, but like it gives room for some people to get out, or a plane catches fire on the runway and but a plane that takes off and blows up effectively like before it hits the ground and then crashes outright. I can't think of any other, and it's a passenger jet. I can't think of any other instance where there were survivors, let alone a guy who at least on the surface looks like he's kind of just okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Never. A lot of crazy stuff happening in the world. Um, yeah, let us know in the comment section below what you guys thought of the conversations we had today regarding Grillo and his preference and highlighting the differences between how the MCU does things and DC. Uh, let us know what you guys think of the Andor ratings and what does this sets the precedent for new Star Wars. I sure hope it does. And Spaceball 2, I just can't wait. I just can't wait. Hopefully I can manifest Space Ghost. John Hamm as Space Ghost. We gotta see it. We gotta see it. That's a good that's a big movie right there, Space Ghost. Yeah, so and Jurassic Park looks interesting for me. I have never been too much into the Jurassic Park IPs outside of the original,
Hmm.
but this one at least looks interesting, and we're gonna see new stuff, and hopefully the scares are gonna be. I mean, the scares I don't really care too much about the scares, but I just visually how this is gonna look and the story that is gonna be told is gonna be interesting to see. But it has a lot of competition and will have siphoned off some money from what could Superman make and what Fantastic. I don't know. I don't think so. I think people are gonna be happy to go to the movies, Brian. They're gonna have
I
their
hope so.
options, and if they can't see this movie, they're gonna hear about this movie. They're gonna go see it. This run of movies that are gonna be coming up next are going to be in theaters for I think quite some time, and the buzz is going to be interesting to hear what people have to say about each of these ones. So yeah, yes, hit the comment section, hit the like button, comment in the comment section below, hit the notification bell, and we'll see you next time on the Nerd Jet Report.